Reality, Healing, Living, and Helping meeting. If you're comfortable, please activate your videos. It's just really nice to see your faces. So this program helps you to take higher energy paths after big changes and challenges. This can create quantum leaps in your learning, growth, enjoyment, and service to others. The evidence-based information and holistic resources in this program can help you optimally heal, live, and help, no matter what your past or current circumstances. The program is not designed, though, to replace medical or psychotherapeutic care. The meeting includes a 10-minute presentation, 20 minutes of Q&A, and 30 minutes of sharing and discussion. The first two parts are recorded, but the sharing sessions are not. I'd now like to introduce our presenter, Mark Pitstick, MADC. Mark has over 50 years of experience helping many people in hospitals, pastoral counseling sessions, mental health centers, and holistic health clinics. To learn more, visit soulproof.com/about. His ebooks, audiobooks, audio programs, and documentary film are free at soulproof.com/shop. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Allison, and welcome everyone. And how many of you have attended a meeting before? Just wave your hand on the screen, please. Okay, well, welcome back. And for how many of you is this your first meeting you're attending? See your hands. All right, well, special welcome to you, and I hope you'll find this to be very helpful and assist your journey during this very interesting earthly experience. So before well, first of all, please have a pen and paper or some kind of recording device, because I'll talk about article numbers, resources for you, and so you'll want to jot those down. Also, if you have any questions for the Q&A. So the way this will go is I'm going to discuss a bit about the basics of the program and show you where you can find the resources. In other words, giving you everything you need to optimally heal, live, and help others and yourself. So and then I'll talk about 2 of the keys. There are 18 keys to help you do that, no matter what's going on in your life, and I'll share that list later. If you've heard this preview before, listen again, because a repetition will help you more deeply know and show this great news. In other words, there is a superficial intellectual knowing, but then there's a deep knowing that no matter what happens to you, you're like, I remember how life's really set up. I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to find the silver linings and benefit from them and share them with others. And that's really knowing. Also, when you really understand what I'm about to share, then you can teach others, share it with others, and help them. So let's dive in. First of all, the term greater reality, as in Greater Reality Program, describes all that exists, the totality of life. Synonyms for that are the big picture of life, the nature of reality, and how life is really set up. So we're talking about life before we come to Earth, while we're on Earth, afterwards. We're talking the cosmos, eternity. This is a big vision, a big picture here. And you understand the past human views about this came from ancient religious teachings. They had limited understandings, of course, several millennia ago, and then nefarious elements back then, as now, took advantage of people for control to make money. There were fear-based elements. So all of that created confusion and fear. And some people, understandably, just rejected any interest in the afterlife or a creator because of the absurd, bizarre, schizoid things taught about a creator. And I understand that. But the good news is that now we have much scientific, clinical, and experiential evidence. And experiential means based on firsthand experiences, that this earthly experience really is a totally safe, meaningful, and magnificent adventure amidst forever. And that's not just, pie in the sky, wishful thinking. That's the way life is set up. So I'll say it again, totally safe, meaningful and magnificent adventure. And this program is designed to help you understand that even after your diagnosis of terminal cancer, even after your child passes on, even after your beloved pet succumbs, etc., the worst of the worst, you can still know this and respond in a very different way, what we call a higher energy path. So Dr. Gary Schwartz, and this take a moment, this is Gary E. Schwartz, PhD, former Harvard, Yale, and University of Arizona professor, director of the Soul Foundation, a certified genius. He had 2 near-death experiences. I've been working with him for 10 years. And I wrote the book, Greater Reality Living, in 2018, and we're going to upgrade it after some advances this year to the Greater Reality Healing, Living, and Helping book. But we compiled 10 indications based on, again, scientific, clinical, and experiential evidence about how life is really set up. And we call this the great news. The first 4, no one really dies. Life continues after bodily death. And we create the quality of our afterlife. We definitely will see our loved ones again who have passed on, and we can now, and I'll talk a bit about that later, that we each are integral, infinite, beloved parts of source energy. And that's what so many people have near-death experiences. That's the most common statement from people who have near-death experiences come back and say, we each are one with the one and part of source. Again, this is how life's really set up versus what we were taught. My beloved dad, one of my best friends, passed on 19 years ago, but not long before he passed, we were talking, and he grew up Catholic, and back then the masses were in Latin. And I said, what was that like, Dad? And he said, well, no one understood what they were saying. We just sat there and hoped whatever they're saying was good news. And I'm like, oh my God, what a way to teach, existential truths. No, people deserve more than that. Well, here we are now. You're getting accurate descriptions. And another one of the pieces of great news, you are here on Earth for timely reasons. You have important missions and reasons for being here at this time. And then there are others. So be sure to see article number 19, The Great News About the Nature of Reality. Now, part of why I designed this program, while Dr. Schwartz and his team are working on technology to allow near real-time, highly accurate, and secure communication with post-material persons, that is, people who have passed on, both loved ones and luminaries, scientists, inventors, educators, etc. And so that's going on. That's real. And so while he's doing all that, and I help some with the research, but also I'm helping prepare as many people as possible for the paradigm shift that's coming up. So that, and he just submitted 2 journal papers to a scientific journal that with the articles highlighting all the data from 5 years of experiments that definitively demonstrate scientifically that life continues after bodily death. He's also finishing, probably early next week, the second draft of his book, The Soul Phone Experiments. Well, he'll share the entire 24 years of his research documenting what we're talking about, afterlife, contact with loved ones who have passed, etc. So this is super exciting stuff. And by the way, we'll be in Tucson Monday, and we'll probably have dinner with him on Tuesday to celebrate him finishing the draft. So there's a lot of exciting things going on. And so I want you to know about that, because each one of you can be part of this positive movement, reaching a tipping point for our world to become a better place, to have widespread conscious living. Now, we're not asking you to blindly believe what we're saying. Learn for yourself. That's why we talk about the articles and the information and so on. So I recommend 3 ways for you to consider what seems most true to you. First of all, indications from the contemporary evidence I've been talking about. Next, religious and spiritual teachings that resonate with you, because they have golden threads within them, and there's certainly kernels of truth. But as Thomas Jefferson said, unfortunately, many times the truth is embedded like diamonds in a dung heap, because there's a whole lot of crap that's accumulated over the millennia about that. And then the third thing is listening to your inner voice. You know, when you read something, you're thinking about something, get in touch with your real self, your eternal energy, the totality of who you are, and just feel, discern, you know, is that true or not? Would a great teacher like Buddha or Jesus say something like, really? Or is that added later on by power mongers? So there's that. The Greater Reality Living program provides everything you need to know and show how wonderfully life is set up. And so we have free resources, videos, these presentations, these talks. We'll have a sharing session, a Q&A later, follow-up support, guest speakers. I mean, literally everything you need to help you no matter what you're going through. Heal yourself, live the greatest life you have envisioned, and help others. And as a matter of fact, this changes the world. And that's the keynote I'll be giving at the to 1,100 bereaved parents at the Helping Parents Heal conference this summer, that truly each one of you and the suffering you've gone through and this shift you're making can help change our world for the better. So it's not just for you and the people you contact, it's for our whole world. So if that doesn't get you excited, you're probably in the wrong place. By the way, I mentioned the greatest life you have envisioned. That word "you" refers to your real self, your higher self, your eternal energy, not just your humanness and your brain. When I trained with Brian Weiss, 1998, to do past life regressions, he said, based on all his research, said humans want things to be easy, safe, and comfortable. Souls care about none of that. They want to learn. They want to grow. They want to serve others. They want to have adventures. And that in itself explains a lot of things. So this vision I'm sharing, I mean, keep in mind, I've been working on this for 54 years since I started working with dying people in hospitals, and especially seeing little children pass. It just brought me to my existential knees. So that's why I've worked so long, so hard to put all this together. So if this sounds overwhelming, I'm like, oh, that's a lot of words. I understand. And that's why the repetition's important, and also the different resources we'll mention to help you really grok this. So again, I'll say it another way. The Greater Reality Healing, Living, and Helping program provides evidence-based information and holistic resources to help you after any kind of major change and challenge. So you understand that our brain, wonderful as it is, perceives much less than 1% of reality. We're all walking around looking through a tiny pinhole, and that's why changes and challenges can seem like losses. In other words, say you have a loved one, a child or adult, other family member, or a pet who passed on, and you're going, oh, and I'm not criticizing or demeaning the pain. I know the pain involved. But the humanness says, why did they have to go? I miss them so much. This is horrible. And they're standing right beside you, shouting, don't you remember the big picture of life, your eternal soul? We're soulmates. You know all this. We chose to come to earth. Come on, wake up. And that's what this is about, is awakening. So some of the major changes and challenges I'm referring to, anything, but including the bodily death of a beloved person or pet, financial reversals, illness and disability, relationship breakups, lack of purpose, lack of meaning, loved ones with mental imbalances and addictions, and anything else. I mean, we all know the list, right? It's like being a human 101. Now, taking a higher energy journey, that is focusing on peace, joy, love, gratitude, compassion, finding the silver linings, and so on, after these big changes, may seem impossible. However, many people have demonstrated that. And so with all my training, experience, but most of all, what I've learned from so many people. I mean, I've worked with tens and tens of thousands of people over 54 years. And so they taught me so much, and especially the people that demonstrated what is possible after severe tragedies. I'm talking about people who are paraplegic, paralyzed from the neck down, terminal diseases, raped, molested, throat cut in some cases. And I talked with them afterwards, and they talked about what that was like for them and what they learned from it. Many parents with kids who pass. So it is possible. These people are demonstrating that no matter what you're going through, you can have a breakthrough, not a breakdown. One of the sayings of helping parents heal is when a child passes, and this applies to any other kind of big change, it can make you better or bitter. And it turns out it's a day by day choice. Which wolf are you going to feed? What are you going to focus on? The loss or the memories, the gratitude, and also now evidence-based knowledge that you'll see them again and that there is a rhyme and a reason for all this. So let me screen share here and show you the resources so you know where to find these. And you don't need to see my notes. So can you see my cursor and the Soul Proof website? Hello, Allison, let me know. Okay, so here we are, articles. So we're at soulproof.com, articles, and 145 articles now. Somebody stop me. What's the last one? Dreamtime, visiting, learning, and healing. Here's one from a woman who's married to 2 different men. Which one will be my spouse in the afterlife? That was a fun one. So I can guarantee you, whatever you wonder about, there's 1 or more articles about this in here that will help you. So I mentioned earlier article number 19, the great news about the nature of reality. And then you just click on this and the article comes up. 82 is the key article for healing. So here we are, greater reality healing, a higher energy path about life's toughest changes. So that shows you where the articles are. Next, clear out some space here, under shop. Allison mentioned in the introduction, all of my digital products are free. So that's 8 ebooks, 4 audiobooks that I control the audio rights for. And so take a look at these. One of the most useful in the beginning, especially this journey, is the afterlife evidence. So this is a compilation. It's a really short book, clearly stated what is all the scientific, clinical, and experiential evidence that shows that no one really dies. And so, another important one I'll mention is Radiant Wellness. This is actually the first book I wrote, but I kept improving it, changing it, because it's very difficult, almost impossible to strongly be on the spiritual path, to be aware of why you as a soul came here and to fulfill your missions, share your special talents, if you're chronically ill, fatigued, anxious, depressed, as so many people are. I know this, after practicing with so many people. And so this book explains how you can fine-tune the temple of your soul in body, mind, and spirit. And many people have done it, so make sure you check that out. Then also 10 audio programs. So you can download these, again, at the low price of $0. And one of the most useful ones here is holistic breathing. 40 minutes of deep, noisy, diaphragmatic breathing to release old wounds, deep pain. You realize we store that so much, and we need to get clear. We need to release that so we're seeing more of the big picture. It also helps you release past fear-based teachings and remember more of the big picture of life. And the other thing I'll highlight is this afterlife contact session. So this is done with deep relaxation / hypnosis, guided imagery, helping you get in touch, turn down the brain and get in touch with your loved ones. And thousands of people have had wonderful experiences, having their loved ones who have changed worlds touch them, stroke their face, hold their hand, have long telepathic communications, and so on. So be sure you check this out. And then the Soul Proof documentary, a 93-minute video. So there are some of the resources. And the last thing is this Greater Reality program. So here's the top tab, Greater Reality program. And this is a 13-minute video that explains it. Here's a list of the key articles. And then this is really important. When are the meetings? How do you join the meetings? How do you receive automated updates? And you just click on that. All you do is put in your first name and email address. I guarantee you we will not sell these, or no one will be able to use them. So see that. And then under Greater Reality program, here's where the videos are parked. Helping and Living, only 2 videos each. Healing, 18 30-minute videos. Why? Because we're addressing any kind of tough challenge, change, loss that you've gone through. And so there are a lot of angles to this to help you do that. And then finally, recordings of past meetings. And then you can see guest speakers coming up. So for example, for next month, Craig Hogan, Eben Alexander. This is my beloved Andy, who has so many gifts. I think she's part angel. Jeff Olson. Oh my God. I mean, these people, just so amazing. Raymond Moody, Rob Schwartz, Mark Anthony, Shared Crossings, one of the discoverers, William Peters. So this gives you an idea of the resources I wanted to share. And with that, I will say one more thing about the audio programs, and that is in 9 of the 10, we're doing the deep relaxation guided imagery. And so those really quiet the brain. Again, the brain thinks it knows everything, but knows very little. In Hindu literature, they say the brain is a wonderful slave, but a horrible master. So you want to be able to quiet your brain so the rest of your consciousness can come to the fore. And so that's one of the benefits of doing these audio products, whichever one, except for the holistic breathing, to help you get more comfortable with different space-time dimensions, different aspects of life. And they help you move beyond words. I know we're using a lot of words here, and at some point, words kind of don't do it. And that's why having firsthand experience with these audio programs really help. That's why, by the way, I have behind me plant, art, because they just scream, it's okay, the beauty of life. In fact, I woke up this morning. I know I'm a rambling guy here, but I woke up this morning just before I woke up, and it was that I stepped outside and I looked up, and it was such a beautiful blue sky, and a single leaf was floating down through the air. And I looked at it and I realized, God, what an amazing sign that life is perfect. This, what we're going through, life is set up perfectly, exquisitely beautiful. It's like this nirvanic experience, satoric experience, just before I woke up. Like, how cool is that? What a great way to start a day. And then same way with the books behind me, because those inform the brain. And that's why it's so important it's like a software update. Your brain's like a computer. So if you're like most of us, you were taught things that weren't right or weren't totally right. And now you have opportunity to upgrade that. All right, finally, I will say that my email address is mark@soulproof.com, M-A-R-K, because some people have questions or challenges that they're too embarrassed to share. They won't share publicly. Email me, mark@soulproof.com. I'll respond. It only takes a few minutes of my time because of templates and everything I've created over the last 54 years. So I am glad to do it as long as my schedule allows. All right, I am going to quickly share 2 keys. So these keys are in article number 82. There are also videos on each one of these keys. There are 18 different keys, again, to help you optimally heal, live, and help others and yourself. And that's why these are so important. So the first one is know your true nature, know yourself. So in religious or spiritual terms, you can say you're a soul, you're a beloved part of creation now and always. In more scientific or clinical terms, you're an indestructible being of energy, consciousness manifesting as a human being. So many people suffer needlessly because of the illusion Albert Einstein referred to as optical delusions, that we're separate from each other and we're separate from source, and that we can really die. So those are all illusions, but they're very real ones. And regarding the illusion of separateness from self, I had dinner with Eben Alexander, and he was sharing with me, excuse me, that during his week-long coma and profound near-death experience, he was taught that the misperception of illusion from source is the core cause of many people feeling alienated. People feel abandonment, and in therapy, like I felt alienated from people, or my parents didn't really love me. That's just superficial stuff. At the core of that, many people feel, and again, based upon just crazy, horrible religious teachings, that they are separate from source. God's way up in the sky, and if we do everything perfectly, maybe we'll get to have a glimpse of him someday, always him, right? And that's just so off the mark. Quick drink. So read articles to help you understand more about this. Number Article 15, The Nature of Humans, Who Are You Really? 118, Who and What Are You Really? So those are the articles for that, to better know yourself. And I mentioned some of the audio programs, for example, the Ask Your Soul, Angels in the Light, so you can go beyond words and get in touch with your higher self and your spiritual support team. So be sure to use that. Finally, key number 8, learn about the afterlife. This is one of the most common questions I'm asked. What's the afterlife like? And I have to kind of smile. Again, because so many misperceptions, but understanding more about how the afterlife is really set up can lighten and shorten grieving. It can help you make much more sense of what's going on Earth. So many people, especially in the Western culture, have two views about death. First, it's the end of life. That's it. Cessation of consciousness. And the collective evidence clearly shows that that's false. The other is that, and this is mainly a Judean-Christian view, that your soul ends up either, and I call it the big cut, in heaven or hell forever. And that's what people believed in the Middle Ages, which were also called the Dark Ages. So isn't it time to move beyond that? So it's really important to, in other words, I hear from people, my loved one wasn't saved. So is he in hell? And I'm just like, oh my God, no wonder our world is such a mess, when people are dealing with fears like that. So the picture, based on everything we know, is that the quality of your afterlife is directly proportional to the degree of your consciousness when you pass on. In other words, Mother Teresa, pretty highly regarded as a saint, when she passed on, it's probably like walking from one room to another. And she's probably like, maybe after a little rest, okay, how can I help? Who needs something done? Somebody like Hitler, yeah, deep, long sleep, long life review that seems like hell because of mistakes he made and how he lived. So your quality, at least your initial quality of your afterlife, is going to be a result of how you are before your passing. Gandhi, for example, he was shot 3 times in the abdomen. You know how much that hurts? I've worked with a lot of people in ERs who were shot in the abdomen. Excruciating pain. He laid there saying names of God as he was dying. Ram, Ram. What, you think he entered the higher echelons, the higher understandings? Yeah. So that's why it's so important to live a godly life or to live the best life you've envisioned you can, not only because it blesses your experience now, but it shapes the quality of your afterlife. And a couple other quick things I want to share about
Mark, we
afterlife.
should move on pretty soon. We're way over our 10 minutes.
I'm sorry?
We should move on to Q&A fairly soon.
Yeah, we're going to. Yeah, okay. We want the articles on this for this key, heaven and hell, what are they really? Article number 14. And then number 107, what is the afterlife really like? So yeah, with that, let's move on to any questions you have, the Q&A. Thank you. So much to cover. Mila, yes.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for the beautiful presentation. And I'm listening, and I've been listening for about 6 months to you, and I love how encouraging everything sounds. And I've read some articles, but I have this feeling, even though it's beautiful news, exciting news, but I feel it doesn't help me kind of to, it doesn't give me tools how to live my human life from day to day, how to deal with, people in my life, how to deal, of course, with grief, how to, because I still kind of feel that we have to live our human experience to the full extent. So if we want to experience everything, so we have to kind of feel all of it, suffer all of it. But sometimes it's just so overwhelming, it's so hard, and um,
Yeah, I
like every
understand.
day, basically, but yeah, basically every day you want to give up. So I'm not finding the tools, and just coming to my question. I know that you talked about religions, and I think you're talking more like Christianity and Catholicism, right? About this being that just helps everyone.
Okay,
But
let me answer your
yeah,
question, Mila. And that is, I understand that there are so many resources that can seem overwhelming, and that's one reason why I mentioned some things. So where to start? And that's the kind of thing that I give you personal direction on if you email me, mark@soulproof.com. But for you, I would start with two of the audio programs. And the first is holistic breathing, because you obviously have encountered your share of adversity, pain, and suffering. So, this holistic breathing technique is described in article number 71. And then you go to shop and you download the free audio program and use that about twice a week as discussed in the introductory track. And that'll help you release all this like dirty laundry you're carrying around so you get more clear, so you're not carrying that weight. And then the second technique is and I mentioned both of these, the ask your soul, angels, and the light technique. So this is kind of hypnosis where we quiet the brain and you get in touch with your real self. You understand who you look at in the mirror is only a fraction of who you really are. And you can ask then any questions you want. How can I improve relationships? How can I heal from this? How can I deepen my spiritual path? And then there are 2 minutes of silence after that where you let those answers float up, pop in. So that's a really powerful start. So start with those and then let me know how you're doing in 30 days after that. Okay?
yeah, thank you so much. Just I was talking also about religions. Don't you think that there are some, at least, religions that can be, they're like connecting people and bringing them together, and kind of everyone is, working for the same goal and using the same tools, and which is uniting. And have you researched other religions besides?
Well, that's why I mentioned there are golden threads that run throughout the great religions. And certainly there's been a lot of good that come from them. But unfortunately, the most vocal religions are the most fundamentalist, the most scary. The more moderate religions we call the silent majority. in theology school, like Methodist, Episcopal, Protestant, Lutheran. They just don't say too much about hell and so on. But the fundamentalist religions scare the hell out of people, and that has such an impact. Uh, there's one other thing on that. There are over 40,000 different denominations within Christianity. What a huge number. And there are over 10,000 religions on our planet. So if you say, well, religions say this, well, which one? There are so many. So that's why I encourage people to look at the evidence, consider what resonates with them from whatever religion or spiritual source they look at, and then what's your inner voice tell you?
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
thank you again for the question. Super job. And who's up next? Hello, Carol.
Hi.
You have a question?
Can you talk to
Sorry, I did it. Okay. Quite a while ago, you were talking about a soul phone.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Is that still in development?
It is.
Mhm.
Yeah, so for the rest of you, we're talking about the Soul Phone Project, and there's a whole website for that, soulphone.org. And there's a newsletter I put out every 2 months to give people updates. So yes, that project was, I mentioned Dr. Schwartz has been working on this for about 24 years. I've been working with for the last 10, one of our coordinators for this program, Jennifer Horner. She's been working with for over 15 years. So yes, Dr. Schwartz and his team are working on what we call post-material communication technology, meaning a way for people who have passed on to, first of all, provide a yes or no answer, what we call the soul switch. And then once we have a switch, to put together some kind of keyboard so that we can text and type with people who have passed on. Again, both loved ones and luminaries who want to help us improve our world. So it's very real. Until last year, this occurred at the University of Arizona. But then Dr. Schwartz retired last year and is now in a private lab, but that's ongoing. Dr. Schwartz considers that it's no longer a question of if we will have this technology, it's a matter of when.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about that?
No. I
Okay.
just envision all the people in heaven with cell phones now. They thought they got rid of them. Got to get them back again.
Yeah. By the way, one of the reasons we call it soul phone is because people are familiar with cell phones. And our goal is to make soul phone technology just as affordable and widely available as cell phones. Okay, Mila, you have a question?
You already answered hers. She just left her hand up.
Okay, any other questions before we start the sharing sessions? All right. So with that, let me
I think,
say,
sorry, Carol has a question. Carol?
Okay, there, I'm unmuted. I wonder if you can respond to the loss of David Wilcox by suicide, and also my son's friend, age 42, she also committed suicide this week. And I wonder if you just can give us like the vibration of what's going on with them spiritually and whether we can talk to them on the other side about that. Just a response would be good.
yeah, well, first of all, suicide, it doesn't fall into one category. In other words, there's all sorts of unique situations there. So, for example, when I was 21, my first love broke up with me. We had been together for 4 years, which is a long time when you're 21. I thought she was going to be my wife and all that, how first loves are. And when she broke up, I thought of suicide, the only time in my life. I was in so much pain. I'd wake up at night, my pillow would be wet from crying in my sleep. And so one night I was just driving down the road late at night, and I thought, I could just drive my car into a bridge abutment and this pain would be over. Well, immediately I thought, what am I thinking about? I thank goodness I wasn't at that point where I would act on that. However, some people do. There's just too much pain. On the other end of the spectrum, say it's a really old person or someone who's losing their mind or someone with a terminal disease, Lou Gehrig's or whatever. And they're like, I don't want to do that. I want death with dignity. I want to pass on and have a good death. And so they choose assisted suicide, or they choose to pass on in their own time and by their own way. So you see there's a whole spectrum. The bottom line, Carol, and thank you for this question, is that people who pass on, they just can't take it anymore. Being on Earth, being on Earth is very difficult. And so they're in so much psychic and or physical pain that they decide to pass. One woman wrote that whatever her disease, I forget the name of it now, she said it felt like she was being stuck by 100 ice picks at the same time, 24 hours a day. I don't know how long you'd hold up under that, but for me it wouldn't be very long. I'm like, I'm out of here. I don't like ice picks. So I understand all that. Most people do, and certainly Angel's creator do. So, fundamentalist religions will say that's a slap in the face to God. It's the unforgivable sin. That's just so much crap. What we know from people we know from near-death experiences, from mediums, from Michael Newton's Life Between Lives work, is that people who pass by suicide are tended to lovingly. The settings are described as sometimes these people are just so raw and wounded that they are only attended to by angels and energetic beings who appear to be puppies and fawns and kittens. And isn't that way a loving creator would react to somebody who is so much in pain that they would choose to end this, versus you're going to burn in hell forever. So articles on this topic are number 4. Let me look here. Number 4, when a loved one passes by suicide. Number 5, if you are considering suicide. Number 36, suicide prevention. I'll say these again. And 135, help for those with loved ones who passed on by suicide. So that's 4, 5, 36, and 135. I've been working this field since I was in theology school in my mid-20s, so it's a topic very near and dear to my heart. So they will be fine. I will say one last thing. In the big picture of things, suicide is just another ticket back home. In other words, humans have all these judgments and beliefs, but really, bottom line, it's kind of like illness or an accident or being murdered or whatever. It's your way to return home to the really real place.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. All right. With that, sharing session. So before we start, the next meeting will be May 12th at 11 a.m. So that's about 4 weeks from now. And I'll be talking about 2 more keys, how to optimally care for yourself. I alluded to that earlier. And number 10, centering practices, how to quiet the brain, as Alan Watts said, how to lose your mind so you come to your senses. And I'll share different ways you can do that match your lifestyle and preferences. So I hope this program resonates with you and assists your journey to optimally healing, living, and helping. Let us know, mark@soulproof.com, if you need anything to help you do that. So God bless and let it shine. That's my closing.